nuclear technology to other countries.
Congressman, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for agreeing to the interview.
Well, thank you for being here.
Very nice to meet you.
Very nice meeting you. Thank you.
I understand you are serving your 15th term in Congress right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost 30 years, isn't it?
Yes, and it just seems like yesterday I was walking up the Capitol steps for the first time. Mm-hmm. It goes by in a hurry.
It does.
Uh-huh.
You know, what are some of the committees that you serve on, and what kind of role do you play?
Well, I was chairman of the Government Reform and Oversight Committee for 6 years, and that committee investigates waste, fraud, and abuse in government in all agencies. As a matter of fact, it is the most important investigative committee in the Congress, and we investigated the White House, the Justice Department, the FBI, a whole host of different areas, Health and Human Services. So it was a very interesting 6 years.
There are over 250 congressional member organizations, and you serve on many of those.
Mm-hmm.
But why Korea?
Well, Korea is an extremely important ally. First of all, it's a very strategic part of the world. The United States has a real interest in China, mm-hmm. Taiwan, Korea, Japan, that whole area. And Korea is a central part of that. And you have Kim Jong-il, and as I said before, his father right. and possibly his son, that have been a real threat to peace and security for South Korea. Mm-hmm. And South Korea is a free democracy, a good friend of ours, and we want to make sure that we work together to protect each other. And if South Korea were to fall to the communists, for instance, I think that whole region would be in danger, as well as the South China Sea. So South Korea is extremely important to the United States, and we need to continue to work together.
So what are your thoughts about the potential successor to Kim Jong-il? His third son, Kim Jong-un, is being named, and there are a lot of movements and activities in North Korea as they prepare mm-hmm. for Kim Jong-il's successor. Do you have any thoughts?
I'll tell you, the thing that concerns me about North Korea, in addition to their nuclear development program and their threat to the rest of that region, including South Korea, mm-hmm. is that the free world continues to support them off and on. Obviously, when people are starving to death in the famine up there, the government-imposed famine, mm-hmm. We want to do what we can to help. But at the same time, we don't want to do things that will keep communism in power indefinitely. So I think our government and other governments around the world need to be very aggressive in doing whatever we can to replace the communist leadership up there.
Now, going back to South Korea and our relationship between the U.S. and South Korea, mm-hmm. one of the ways to show South Korea that the United States value their friendship, mm-hmm. that they are a strong ally of the United States, is this KORUS FTA that is pending ratification. Mm-hmm. But as you know, Congressman, 4 years have passed since the agreement was signed, and we have yet to see it ratified, either by the United States Congress or the National Assembly. Well, so why the delay?
Well, President Obama has said, he wants to see Congress act. Congress has spoken.
Yes.
And all he has to do is sign it. This idea that the South Korean Free Trade Agreement, the Colombian Free Trade Agreement, the Panamanian Free Trade Agreement, all of those are on the President's desk. All he has to do is put his signature on there, and we will have a free trade agreement. I think it's extremely important for the United States and South Korea that we get that ratified.
And before the August recess, both House and the Senate, as I understand it, they had hearings. They also addressed the issue of TAA, right? Mm-hmm. The Trade Adjustment Assistance. I think that's one thing that the Obama administration wanted included as a condition to support the KORUS FTA. Your thoughts on TAA?
Well, I know what the President wants. I know what the Congress has sent to him, and I think he ought to sign it as it is. The TAA, if that's the only stumbling block, then, of course, we have to work that out. Mm-hmm. But I think the President ought to be very forthright and say to the people of the world and Korea sure. that he has the bill on his desk. All he has to do is sign it, and it will be enforced. So I don't think we ought to hold it up. I think we ought to get on with it.
Among the constituency, do you have some Korean Americans, and how big is it?
We do have Korean Americans. It's not a big contingency, mm-hmm. Contingent group that we have there. But it's a great group,
yes.
And the reason I am supporting Korea is not because of the constituents in my district. but because I feel very strongly about freedom, democracy, and human rights. And South Korea is a perfect example of what can happen. If you look at South Korea and you look at North Korea, right next door to one another, and you see South Korea as a burgeoning society, a free democracy, the people vote, the people speak, and right next door you see a totalitarian communist government, and you see how South Korea has grown and prospered and what a great civilization it is. And you look at North Korea and see famine, people starving to death, people trying to get out of there, and you realize very vividly when you look at Korea, the whole peninsula, the difference between freedom, democracy, and human rights and totalitarian government. It's a perfect example.
Sure. So do you ever see a unified Korea someday?
Well, we hope. I think that communism cannot survive unless it feeds on others' success. The reason the Soviet Union fell apart was because they could not afford to keep up their military machine, and they could not afford to build a communist-type economy, and so they collapsed. It took a long time. They had the military that supported the communist regime, just like they do in North Korea, and as a result, pretty soon they collapsed. And I think North Korea will collapse the same way the Soviet Union did if the free world doesn't support it. Like I said before, we certainly don't want to see people starving to death or dying because they can't get proper medical care. But at the same time, we have to realize that if you support the government of North Korea, you help perpetuate them in power, and that's something we should not do.
Real talk. I want to change the topic a little bit.
Sure.
And probably, as I was preparing for this interview, I ran across some of the photos, and you may recognize this. This is a view with President Reagan?
On Air Force One. Mm-hmm.
Tell me, what was the circumstance, and what were you discussing with him?
I was talking to him about foreign policy in Africa. I was a senior Republican on the Africa Subcommittee of Foreign Affairs at the time, for some time. And there were problems in South Africa and Malawi and Mozambique and other countries over there. And on Air Force One we had a little time, so I sat down and gave the President my perspectives on some of those problems.
Was it the first time you were on Air Force One or many other times?
No, I was on Air Force One more than once, but that's my favorite picture because it captures me and the President in real conversation about issues. There's some stories about him that if you were interested in hearing about them.
Yes, please.
Well, when I first went to the White House, when I first got elected, I had promised my mother that I would take her in to meet the President personally. My father went to prison when I was a boy. He tried to kill my mother. And my mother was a waitress for 18 years. And so when I got into politics, I said, one of these days I'm going to be in Congress and I'm going to take you in the front door of the White House and introduce you to the President. Well, they didn't believe that would ever happen. So when I got elected, I called President Reagan's office, and his secretary very kindly talked to the President. And they said, yes, he would see me and my mother and my stepfather. So I parked the car around behind the White House. We walked around to the front door. I took her in the front door of the White House. And she was scared to death. She was a waitress, very humble beginnings. And we went in the Oval Office. And he made her feel extremely special. He put his arm around me and told her what a great young man I was and everything, and told about our hardships and he told about things that I didn't think he knew about. And he made it a point to make her feel special. And the thing that was really a coincidence was he was her favorite actor in the movie. So not only did she meet the President of the United States, but she also met her favorite actor. And it was a very important moment.
I bet President Reagan was everybody's favorite actor. Right?
He was just a nice guy. What you saw was what you got. And he was a great man.
Well, there is another photo here that I want to show you. Look at this. This looks like it's election night.
That was the election, last election.
Last election.
And
tell me about that, because I know in 15th term, that's almost 30 years, you probably enjoyed most comfortable margin of victory each time, right? So was this more sweeter than before?
But that was in my primary. That was my own party. And yes, my district, I won anywhere from 65 to 75% in the fall elections against the opposition. But in my own party, there's been a lot of young people that want to be congressmen, and I understand that. I was like that myself. And they've decided to try to take my place, and that was a very tough campaign, and we were not supposed to win according to the media, but
you did.
But we did, and that's
you're
my wife.
Still here.
That's my wife with me.
Your
right?
wife.
Yeah,
I believe she's quite an accomplished lady herself. I hear.
Yes, she studied 7 years in Paris to get her medical degree. She was very high up in her class in medical school. She's an internist, medical internist.
I see.
And not only is she a lovely lady, but she's intelligent, speaks 5 different languages, and when she gets angry, she says something to me in some other language.
That you don't understand.
She's always smiling. I don't know what she means, but I'm sure sometimes it's not very good.
Well, she sounds like she's very opinionated. Does she also advise you on your political activities?
She comes from Lebanon, and that part of the world is very hot right now with the problems with the changes in Lebanon, or in Lebanon, and in Syria, Egypt, and now in Libya and Tunisia. And she has a lot of experience in that. Her family comes from that part of the world. So she keeps me informed, lets me know what she thinks about it.
Well, I see here another photo here. Looks like you're on live with CNN. Mm-hmm. When was this taken, and what issue were you discussing at the time?
Well, that was an issue that probably should not have come before the Congress. There was a pitcher named Roger Clemens. It's still in the news today. And they wanted to find out if he had taken drugs while he was pitching in the major leagues, and whether or not it was enhancing his ability to perform. And so there were people that were testifying that he had taken them. And that particular picture was taken when I was questioning a person who was one of his accusers, who had lied under oath 6 times. And so the reason I put that on CNN was because I was saying, well, if you lied here, you lied here, you lied here, why should we believe you today?
Right.
And so it was a very contentious moment, and they thought it would be good television.
Well, I mean, this is not the first time you're on TV, so you're very comfortable speaking about issues. And,
it's a lot easier for me to
debating.
speak about issues when I'm talking to a lovely lady like yourself.
Oh, thank you very much.
Did you get that, guys? Don't cut that one out.
Thank you very much. Well, you know, other than myself, I know our viewers are also very interested in asking you some questions. And if I didn't tell you, I want you to know our Arirang TV is going worldwide.
Worldwide?
Yes. We have programs in different languages in 188 countries. And guess what? We have some viewers from the street side that wanted to ask you questions. So let's listen to one of them.
Now, this bell that's going off, this buzzer.
Yeah, let me ask you about that. What is that?
I think your audience worldwide would like to know that this is the way they summon us to the floor for a vote. And right now,
you have votes coming
we
up.
do not have votes coming up right now. It's
giving a warning.
It's a warning bell. And you hear that from time to time. And one of the things that bothers me the most is I wake up in the middle of the night when I hear a bell and I think I should go vote. So I get a little tired of it.
So tell me about that. I know, talking about the noise and sounds here, you have like 15-minute warning to get to the House floor to vote. Is that right?
We have a warning. We have a warning, and then we have 15 minutes within which to get there to vote.
Yes.
We have a 15-minute buzzer, and then we have 10 minutes, and then we'd better skedaddle, get over there.
Otherwise, you don't make it on the House floor and you miss the vote.
Well, that's right, and if you miss votes, then your constituents think you're not doing your job, so it's very important to be there.
Talking about constituents, let's get to one of the questions.
I heard you like the former Prime Minister of Great Britain. Is there a quote of Churchill that you find most memorable?
Yes, I think one of the most salient points and things that Winston Churchill said was during the darkest days when he was trying to buoy the spirits of the people of England, they expected him to come and give a pep talk. And he came and was very real in expressing himself to the people of England, saying, you know, this is what we're facing. And he said, I have nothing to offer but blood, sweat, toil, and tears. And I think that put steel in the spines of everybody in England, and they realized that this was a major conflict they had to win. And I think I have his picture all over my office, as you know, and he's one of my real heroes. I think he's one of the greatest leaders, along with Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher of the 20th century.
Well, let's listen to his second question.
Okay. I heard you're an excellent golf player. Who's your favorite player?
My favorite player, there's a number of them. I think the greatest player in the last decade has been Tiger Woods. I played Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods still?
Yeah. Well, I think he's still a great player. He's had a lot of personal problems, and that's unfortunate. But I think, we've all had problems of one type or another. And I think, you reach a point where you say enough's enough. But there's a lot of golfers I've played with. I've played in a lot of professional amateur tournaments, and I've played with probably 50 or more of the major golfers around the world. So there's a lot of them that I think are great. The main thing I think is important. It's not what a great golfer they are, but what a great human being they might be. And I think an awful lot of those guys on the Pro Tour really care about their fellow human beings. And that's why they donate a lot of money to charity.
And I agree with you. Having some personal problems doesn't make Tiger Woods less of a pro golfer than he really is. Right?
And the thing is, I can recall back when we were investigating President Clinton during my tenure as chairman of the Government Reform Committee, there were a lot of personal attacks and personal investigations on members of Congress.
Right.
And the president had his problems as well. And so, I think the Bible says very clearly, before you remove the mote from your brother's eye, remove the log from your own. And Jesus was trying to say very clearly that everybody's a sinner, and you just don't be pointing the finger too much at another person.
Well, that's pretty profound.
Pretty good advice.
Well, before we get to the next question, I want to stay on topic of golf. Did you know there is a Korean golfer by the name of Young Kim?
Yes.
Same as me, but I wish I could say I am that Young Kim, but I'm not.
Well,
Do you
I'll
know
tell you,
her?
Korea has had some tremendous golfers, outstanding golfers on the world stage. And they've had some outstanding female golfers, too.
Right.
And I'm a big fan of a lot of the golfers that come out of Korea because they have the right mental attitude. So you see a lot of golfers in other parts of the world that don't control their emotions. But the Korean golfers, they stick to it. They're very disciplined, and that's why they're successful.
I wish I can be that good. There is a saying in Korea, there are two things that you can't control.
What's that?
That's playing golf and your children. Do you agree? You can't control them.
I think controlling your children is a very difficult task. And controlling your temper in golf. I'll tell you a story about golf. I was a championship golfer when I was younger. I was the Indiana state champion when I was in high school. And I won a lot of tournaments. And I had a terrible temper. And I was playing golf with one of my friends one day, and I threw a golf club, and he says, Danny, I'm never going to play golf with you again. I said, why? He says, because you make golf miserable for everybody that's playing with you. And I had broken a putter.
Oh, God.
And I put that putter up on my wall with my trophies, and it's right at the top. And every time I look at that, I realize, don't throw golf clubs and control your temper. Control your emotions.
Exactly.
It's very good advice.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to one more question.
Hello, is there something you can say in Korean?
Now, this is a loaded question because you gave me something to say, and I can't remember it. Let me remind you. What was it?
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
It's a worldwide language that says hello, hi,
how do you
you?
say I love Korea in Korean?
Oh gosh, that's a
Come on now,
loaded word there. 나는 한국 사랑합니다.
Did you get that? Because I love Korea. I love South Korea.
But you're supposed to say that.
Well, I don't do it as well as you do. So I want you to turn around and look in the camera and tell them how to say that again.
Dan Burton 의원님은 한국을 정말 사랑하시는 분입니다.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly what I said.
Congressman Dan Burton really loves Korea.
I do. And I've been to Korea. I've been up to the Panmunjom. I've been to 38th Parallel. I've seen the North Korean soldiers face to face. And I've had the opportunity to meet with the leaders of South Korea. And they're telling us we're about ready to go into session.
Real talk. What is your philosophy in life and also as you serve in Congress?
I think my philosophy is summed up in the Bible. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Jesus said, we should treat others as we would want to be treated ourselves. And I think if we did that worldwide, things would solve themselves, problems would solve themselves. And so I'm a big believer in following the Holy Scriptures, regardless of people's religious background, whether you're Buddhist, whether you're whatever you happen to be, Christian. If you follow the golden rule, I think we'd solve a lot of our problems without having all the wars and problems we have today.
I mean, yes, I don't want you to be late for your votes,
No,
but
I'm
I do
fine.
have a few more questions.
Sure. No, we're not being called for votes right
I
now.
came here early and I was looking around your office. It seems like I was coming into a museum of some sort. You have a lot of memories here, a lot of treasures. And you know what I found? In your closet was this. It's a fine-looking golden boot here. So tell me what this is all about.
Well, I was the chief investigator of the Clinton administration during the campaign finance scandal and the Whitewater and all that. And some people thought I was very aggressive and successful in pushing the case. We issued over 1,200 subpoenas. I got writer's cramp. We had over 100 people either take the Fifth Amendment or flee the country. And so I was very tenacious.
Yes.
That's my character, I think.
Is
And
that why
so-
they're calling you Clinton ass-kicking?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a proper word to say on TV.
Well,
but
it may not be the proper word, but they painted that boot gold and they put the notation on there, and I thought it was an interesting keepsake.
one thing for sure is not you didn't say this,
I
and
did
I
not
didn't
say
make
this.
it up,
I didn't
and
say-
it's what it says here.
It
Right?
is.
That's the
I hope
fact.
everybody in the world knows that I do respect the presidency, but a lot of people thought I was doing the right job in that investigation. Yeah.
And you know, looking also around the room, I see a lot of paintings in your room that is very patriotic. And one of them I noticed was painting depicting the American Revolutionary War. Do you have any particular story related to
Yes,
that?
one of the things, everybody, when they look at their history, their own personal family history, they find a lot of people they're proud of. I have found one person I'm very proud of. He joined the Revolutionary Army, when he was 14 years old. And he was with George Washington when, in that picture there, we'll show you, when George Washington crossed the Delaware and won the first major victory after Boston. And it was a very major victory because a lot of people wanted George Washington replaced as the commander-in-chief of our army.
Right.
And you could imagine what the world would be like if George Washington had been replaced. And that was a big victory, and my ancestor was in that boat. And he was also with George Washington when the last battle of the Revolutionary War took place at Yorktown, and General Cornwallis was defeated, and we became a free country. So I'm very proud of him. He's buried in Indiana. His name is Hardy, and I won't tell you about the horse thieves and the others that were hung, but I'll tell you about him. He was a good guy.
Well, Congressman, it's been a pleasure to talk to a citizen legislator, and you are certainly making a difference in the United States Congress and around the world. And thank you so much once again for agreeing to this interview, and I think our viewers will really enjoy getting to know you better.
Let me end up by just saying this to the viewers around the world. Freedom, democracy, and human rights are so important to everybody in this whole world. And I want to thank the people of South Korea for proving beyond a reasonable doubt that freedom, democracy, and human rights really works. They're a perfect example. Congratulations.
Thank you again, and we shouldn't keep you long for you to go back and get to the House
Gotta
floor
get to
so you
work.
can start
Gotta get to
working. Thank you again,
Thank you so much.
Congressman.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. And today I talked to one of the co-chairs of Korea Caucus in the United States House of Representatives. And it was very evident and clear that Congressman Burton loves Korea. But that's not because he has a lot of Korean American constituency, as he stated. He loves South Korea for what it is. It's a freedom, democratic country, and it has shown to the world what a free country can do. And I long for the day, as Congressman Burton said, that we see a free and democratic, unified Korean peninsula, and hopefully soon.